Imagine you're in a crowded street and someone nearby suddenly collapses. You freeze, glancing around, expecting someone else to rush in and help, but no one does. It's not that people don't care, it's something much deeper, something wired into human psychology. This strange and unsettling behavior is called the bystander effect, a powerful phenomenon that can stop even the kindest people from stepping in during an emergency. But what causes this hesitation when it matters most? Let's dive into the psychology behind why we stay silent when others need us the most. The bystander effect is one of the most intriguing and, at times, unsettling psychological phenomena out there. It reveals a lot about how we behave in group settings, especially in emergencies. At its core, the bystander effect refers to the idea that the more people who witness a situation, the less likely any one individual is to intervene. It's as if responsibility gets diluted in the presence of a crowd. This reaction isn't about people being uncaring, it's about a psychological response to being in a crowd. When more people are present, we feel less personal responsibility. It's called the diffusion of responsibility, and it plays a huge role in why people sometimes don't act in emergencies. The assumption is that someone else in the group will take charge. But why does this happen? And how often does it occur? Let's dive deeper, exploring some real-life examples that show how the bystander effect has played out in different situations. The tragic case of Kitty Genovese. One of the most well-known examples of the bystander effect dates back to 1964, with the tragic case of Kitty Genovese. In the early hours of March 13th, Kitty was attacked near her home in Queens, New York. Despite her screams for help, reports at the time suggested that dozens of people witnessed the attack from their windows, but failed to intervene. In fact, it took over 30 minutes for anyone to call the police. The initial narrative around the Kitty Genovese case became a classic illustration of the bystander effect. People were shocked and confused. How could so many people witness such a horrific event and do nothing? Over the years, the details of the case were re-examined, and while it turned out that fewer people were aware of the severity of what was happening than originally thought, the event still triggered widespread research into the psychology behind inaction in groups. Researchers Bibb Latané and John Darley were among the first to systematically study the bystander effect. Their experiments confirmed that the presence of others does reduce the likelihood that any one individual will help in an emergency. This wasn't just some rare occurrence, it was a widespread and deeply ingrained human behavior. Group psychology in action. Another powerful example of the bystander effect in action happened in 2008 in Hartford, Connecticut. A 78-year-old man named Angel Arce Torres was struck by a car in a hit-and-run accident. Despite being left severely injured in the middle of a busy street, security footage showed cars swerving around him, and pedestrians passing by, seemingly doing nothing to help. It was only after several minutes that someone eventually flagged down a police car. This incident, much like the Kitty Genovese case, left people wondering, why didn't anyone do anything sooner? Psychologists believe this response is connected to several factors. First, there's the aforementioned diffusion of responsibility. Everyone assumes someone else will act. But there's also social influence. In a group, we often look to others for cues on how to behave. If no one else seems to think the situation requires action, we might decide it's not urgent after all. And finally, there's evaluation apprehension, the fear of being judged or embarrassed for acting inappropriately. What if it turns out the person on the ground doesn't need help? What if we misread the situation? These fears can paralyze us into doing nothing. Not always a bad outcome. The case of Wesley Autry. However, not all instances of the bystander effect end in tragedy. In 2007, a New York City construction worker named Wesley Autry was waiting for the subway when he saw a man collapse and fall onto the tracks as a train approached. Without hesitating, Autry jumped down and pulled the man into a safe space between the tracks, saving his life. Interestingly, while other people watched this unfold, it was Autry who acted swiftly and heroically. His case is a powerful reminder that while the bystander effect often holds true, individuals can, and do, break through the paralysis of group inaction. It just takes one person to start a chain reaction. In fact, research shows that when one person steps in to help, others are more likely to follow suit. It's a matter of someone being brave enough to go first. How to overcome the bystander effect. So, what can we learn from all this? How do we overcome the bystander effect when we find ourselves in similar situations? First, awareness is key. Simply understanding the bystander effect and knowing that you're prone to it can help you act differently. When you recognize an emergency, remind yourself that you don't need to wait for others to take action. You can be the one who steps in, even if you're unsure or nervous. Second, take responsibility. In a crowd, it's easy to feel like someone else will handle the situation, but in most cases, everyone is thinking the same thing. If you notice that others aren't moving to help, you might need to be the person who breaks the silence. And finally, be direct. If you're in a situation where you need others to help, don't just shout for help in a general way. Point to specific individuals and give clear instructions like, "You, call 911, or, "Can you help me move this person?" When people are given specific roles, they're far more likely to take action because they now feel personally responsible. The takeaway. The bystander effect is a fascinating insight into human psychology, but it's not an excuse for inaction. Instead, it's a call to be more aware of your tendencies in group settings. In an emergency, don't assume someone else will help. Be the person who steps forward. You never know, your actions could save a life. By understanding the bystander effect and being prepared to act, we can all do our part to ensure that we don't become passive witnesses to someone in need. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, hype, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our future videos. Remember to share this with someone who might benefit from these tips. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.